Hello, everybody, and good morning. We are here in Los Angeles, and we're going to look at the end user report designer. It's going to be fantastic because I only have like 3 slides, and we're going to just write some code. I've always wanted to understand how to use the end user report designer, so I have spent the better part of this week really learning it and finding a good story for showing you how to use it. I welcome your questions. I love questions. It makes my presentations better because I plan for your questions during it. So if there are any questions, please feel free to ask. And if there's any particular aspect you'd like me to see, do let me know. As it did say on the webinar sheet, this is a bit of an advanced topic. We are going to be writing some code. If I go too fast, it's because of Code Rush. So I just wanted you to know that. All right. So today, we are going to look at a sample app. We're going to make one. And then, because every app has these sort of data containers in them, we want to be able to create a method whereby we can do ad hoc reporting on these particular data types. And so the first couple of tasks we're going to tackle is add a create report and then add a preview report based upon the reports we've created. And we're just going to save those the lazy way to files. Later, if we have time, we're going to get to custom report storage, which means that we're not going to just save the reports out to a file, but we're going to save the bits out to a class and then load those up. And then finally, instead of having the preview window and the end user report designer pop out, we're just going to embed them right into our app. Okay, so let's see if we can get let's get this. Let's get there we go. Here is the sample app. We have nothing. And what I'm going to do is I am going to let Amanda write the code real quick while you enjoy this beautiful slide. Okay, so enjoy for a second while she writes that up. Okay, she might be done. Let's take a look. Oh, yep, there we go. Look at that. Okay, so reality. It was the rainbows and unicorns that wrote the app. And let me show you what it does. So it's just really simple. I was talking to my wife the other day, and she had all of these Christmas cards we need to send out. And I said, boy, wouldn't it be simpler if we had a program? So I wrote one, and here it is. Okay, so all this program really does is add and edit contacts. Now, it's not a very interesting scenario to have one object to build reports off of or a list of objects. So what I did is I added sort of categories to each of these people. So let's add a new person. We're going to add Mr. Mahul Harry. Mahul Harry here. And 123 Main Street. And we're going to make him live in Mexico. Oh, yeah, and his zip code is 12345. And we're going to go ahead and say that he is my family, and let's find a good picture for him. Right here. Very good. So we'll hit save. Okay, and we'll add one more person. We're going to add Amanda Christensen. Oh, missed an N. And we're going to make her live on Main Street as well with Mahul, and we're going to say Los Angeles, California, and we're going to put her as one of my church friends, her and I, at the pew. So we'll hit OK, save, and we'll get a pic. Oh, this is a perfect picture for her. All right, we'll go ahead and save that. Notice that all we've done is we've added and updated this particular program. Now, if you want to see a little bit of what's going on, I am indeed using XPO. We have a person, right? And a person has a bunch of properties, as you can see. And a category, an association to categories over here. Let me go down right here. Right? This returns a collection of categories based upon the person. And since it's a many-to-many, you'll see that the category class also has a collection of persons. Okay, next, what I've done is I've implemented controls for each thing. In order for it to be smart, I have an iControl interface that sort of keeps track of every control. And in the main window, let me load that up, I have a tab control, and I add and remove tabs based upon the buttons that happen. And if you want to look at the brains of the code, it's sort of right here. Here's the logic. We have a load person, a save, a delete, a home tab, which is that list of people, a refresh, and a close. So pretty simple stuff. But I did build this myself with the magic rainbows and unicorns that you saw. Okay, so now let's get into a little bit of, well, what does the shape of the data look like? So, because we want to ask the question, well, what kind of reports are we going to allow our users to build? As you saw, we have a person, and we have a category, and a many-to-many association, which means that a person can belong to many categories, and a category can have many people. So that suggests to me two kinds of reports. You want to build a report with the person at the root of the data, or you want to build a category report with the category at the root of the data. So what we're going to do is we're going to build two kinds of reports. One is for person, and one is for category. Now, what I mean by that, I need to clarify, we're going to make it so that our program can build two kinds of reports, and that's the key. All right. So the last slide, well, second to last slide. Let's write some code. Okay. So there's a lot of code going on here that we need to write, but hopefully you follow along. If I write too fast or I write too slow, please do let me know, because I want to do this the right way. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a place where we can store all of this stuff. I'm going to call it reports, right? And in the report, reports folder or namespace, I am going to add an interface called iReport. Now, the reason why I'm going to do this is because I want to be able to control the way that each report acquires its data source. When the report itself is spun up, it is spun up in the absence of the data source, because we want you to provide that at runtime. There is a way also to do it when you say reports. In order to do that, I am going to do it with an interface. So let me do that. Public interface report, and we're going to have a void load data source function that takes care of that. So every report that we build will inherit from iReport, and every time we load the bits up for a report, whether it be from a file or from a database, we'll be able to cast it to an iReport and tell it, look, here is the data source you will be using. And that's important when it comes to the field list and what elements show up there, because no doubt you've seen that if you spin up the end user report designer without a data source, it has no fields, and it's indeed not very useful. Okay, so let's add a report. We're going to use an XReport class, and we're going to call it the person report. It's going to add all of the necessary assemblies. And for the person report, all we really need to do is load an XP collection of type person. That's the data source we're going to bind to. So let me see if I can find that. I might have passed it already, and if so, that would be very... Nope, here it is. We lucked out. So we're going to call it a collection of persons, and what we're going to do is we're going to say that the class info is... Let me rebuild. Okay, so let's make sure that the class info for the person collection is there. Uh-oh, it's not there. Oh, there it is. We'll hit person, and what we'll do is we'll say, okay, the data source is the person collection, so the field list, as you would suspect, has all of this goodness over here, which is every one of the properties of the person. But in addition, we also have sort of the expanded category stuff as well, right, that you can see right there. Okay, so we're done here. Notice that all we're really doing is we're creating a person report. It's blank because we're going to allow our end users to play with that. Now let's do one more. We're going to hit add, and we're going to say new item, and we're going to add an extra report class, and this one is going to be the category report. There you go. And the category report data source is going to be the XP collection. We're going to call it a collection categories. Now, I don't know if you guys are like me at all, but I am very retentive when it comes to naming variables. I don't like having like collection 1 or, you know what I'm saying. I don't like that. So if you see me relentlessly doing that, that is the reason. Okay, so all right, so let's go to categories here, and let's say the class info is category. Then you'll see again that we have the inverted sort of structure that we talked about before, where categories is at the root, and at the bottom we have persons. Okay, now there's one huge thing I forgot. Even though I did implement I did make this interface, what I forgot to do is actually implement it. So let me implement it. I report, and we're going to implement it like this, and all we're going to do in the load data source is say, hey, the data source of the report equals a new XP collection of, we're in the category, so we're going to do category, category, and make sure that that is in there. There you go. And we're going to do the same thing in the person report. I report. There you go. Let's implement this. Equals new XP collection of, we are in the person, so person. And there you go. So in essence, what we've done is we've created the base types for these reports. Okay, so now the question is, how do we actually implement these things? So let me close everything except for main. What we're going to do is we're going to add a new bar. So we're going to create a toolbar. We're going to move it up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a menu item called Create Report. And hit Enter. And in there, we're going to add a menu item for creating a person report. We're going to create a report by person. And we're going to create another one by category. Okay. The next thing we need to do is we need to have a way to preview them, right? So I am going to add a new menu item. And we're going to say preview. And the idea is that this menu item is, again, it's empty, but what we're going to do is we're going to populate it with each of the reports that we create on the fly, okay? So let's go here and go to this by person, and let's go over here and create a report by category. Okay. So now, there is an interesting notion that I need to present here, and it's something that maybe you haven't seen or haven't heard of. There is something called a report service, and let me just write it first, and then you'll see exactly what it's for. So I'm going to go ahead and create a report service, which is a class, and there's going to be a report service for each type of report. So person report service. service. Okay. And the next one obviously is going to be category report service. So let me make this a public class. And there's something called a report type service that we need to implement. So that particular thing is in the extensions, in the report extensions. So let me add it. So let's see if we can find it, and if not, I know where the path is. So we want to go to DevExpress, extra reports, dot extensions. There it is. We've added it. Now, when we go here, notice that all of a sudden this report type service is indeed part of the user designer. And so I'll hit using. And now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and implement. It happens to be an interface, so we'll implement it. Now let's look at these things. Notice that this service has two methods. The method is get the report type. We're not really going to talk about this because there's really not much to say here. We'll just return the type. But this method right here is the interesting one, right? Notice that when you start a report or you create a report in the end user report designer, it automatically names it and it has the base class report. What we want to do is we want to override the mechanism for generating a default report so that we can show the report that we want. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a private const int called a counter, and we're going to set this to 0, right? Then we're going to do counter plus plus, and that's just you know how when you spin up something new and it's the same class again, you get report 1, then report 2, then report. That's all that this is. Uh-oh. Oh, maybe I need to do it like this. Private. Oh no, it's not a const. It's a static. Sorry, that's embarrassing. All right, now the next thing we need to do is we need to give it the default report. And what we're going to do is we're going to say a person report. R is the report that we're going to use. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it a name, r.name, equals, and this is where we use the counter. Right? And then we're also going to make sure that the display name matches the name. And the display name is what we actually show in the tab. And next, we're going to make sure that we load the data source. Right? That's the important thing. And remember, this comes to us because of the interface we've created. Right? So when this type of report comes in, we're able to load that data source. So we're going to return R. Okay? Now, that is the interesting bit of news here. We need to do the same for the category report. So we're going to add a new class, and we're going to do a category report service. Okay. Then we're going to say public, and notice that it's almost exactly the same. In fact, there's probably a way to be smarter about this. No doubt you will tell me, and I will be grateful. Okay, so we'll go ahead and implement this. Notice it's already implemented. The only thing we got to change is category report. Category report. Oh, make sure we have the DevExpress stuff, and we change this to category. Okay, so now what we've done is we've created these services that instantiate the reports that we made. There's a question, will the code for this be available after the session? Yes, I will put it up on our samples on our Code Central. The only problem is, and don't tell anyone, is that I will have to convert it to VB as well, because some people will use VB. So I'm not a very good VB guy. It's really sad. But I will make sure to get that converted. Absolutely. Because again, Jeff, as you mentioned, there's a lot of code I'm writing. It's not that much per se, but it definitely is different kind of code. It's code that that is a little different. Maybe you haven't seen. Okay, so now what we're going to do is what we need to go ahead and open the designer itself. Remember, we had these two little buttons that we've already hit, right? What we need to do is we need to create a function that loads the designer. So let's do that. So we're going to say a private void load designer, and what we want to do is we want to do a report type. And you're saying, but Seth, there is no such thing as a report type. Yes, you are right, but I will go ahead and make an enum. And we're going to say a person report or a category. Now, again, the blazing speed was because of, you guessed it, CodeRush. Okay, so I have just made a new enum to load a report, right? And so let's go to the bottom again. And we have a report type to load the designer. And all we need to do now is load the form and tell it what particular report service. Okay, so let's do an XR design form, right, which is there. And we're going to say form equals new design form. Now the trick is we need to tell it what report service to use when it spins up each new report. So in order to do that, there is a controller. Let me put it this way. I have been amazed constantly every time I dig into this stuff the good practices that are being followed when creating these things. For example, notice that these things have controllers. You probably heard that. You've probably heard those kinds of terms, like, for example, in Model View Controller. Model View Controller, as you probably know, is not just for the web. It's a solid design pattern and looks like we have implemented here. So in the controller, we need to add a service. Let's just do a switch here. Well, let's do an if-else because there's only two types. So we're going to say if type equals report type dot person or category, and then we're going to do an else. Right, and so if the type is category, what we want to do is we want to tell the controller to add a service, and the service is going to be a type of report type service, which is that interface. And what we're going to do is we're going to instantiate the report service that we want, right, which is the report type service. So we're going to say new. And this happens to be a category, so it'll be category report service. And we'll make sure to use the reporting interface. And then otherwise, we want to do the person. Now, again, the classes that I made for category and for person, it's pretty obvious that you can probably put this into a certain class, and it would probably work. And so you don't have to make one for each one, but for the purposes of the demo, I thought I would. Okay, so now we've created a design form. We've loaded the controller. We've told the controller to add this service. And what we need to do is we need to tell it to create a new report. Because if I were just to show the design dialog, it would just show an empty. It would show a brand new. It would just show the empty thing, and we want to show it. And now the other thing that's pretty impressive is I always like to see the field list first, but by default it doesn't come up. So let me show you how to do that. So we're going to say form design doc manager, which is the doc manager for the panels that you see, and we're going to say design doc panel type. We want the field list, and what we want to do is we want to show this one first. Look at that, isn't that handy? Last, we need to show it. Okay, there you go. So notice that this will load the designer, and it will use the right report controller. It will show the field list, and there you go. Now you're thinking, well, run it, Seth, but the problem is it won't work unless I actually hook it up to the event. So load designer, and we're going to say report type. And this one happens to be the person, so we'll say person. And this one's going to be a load designer. And this one is going to be the report type. Report, there we go. And this one's going to be a category. All right. Let's see if it passes the smell test. Okay, it passes the smell test. Now let's see if it actually works. So that's the important thing. So let me hit play. There you go. Now let's create a new report by person and see what happens. Look at that. There is a report designer. Notice if I make a new one, it says person report 2. And let me show you what is happening, because I mean it's kind of like it seems like it's a little black box. It isn't. Let me put a breakpoint here, and let's load the report designer, and let's say new. What happens is the interface is being called through the service in order to generate the new report. So when I hit F10, we're generating a person report. We're giving it a name. Notice the counter is at 3 because it's static for this particular class. I change the display name to the name. And then this is the important part. I am loading the data source of the report. Right? And then I return, obviously, the report. And so there you have 3 reports. Now let's build something, because it's not very interesting until we build something. The root of this particular type of report is person, as you see, and categories are below. So let's go ahead and add some stuff. So let's do a picture here. And let's drag the image on. And let's get the greeting up here. Very good. And let's get a first name. And let's get a last name. Very good. And now, even cooler, let's add a detail report. Notice it knows about categories because XPO is pretty cool. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a name here and make it a little bigger. And the last thing we're going to do, we'll move it over a little. We'll scooch it up, go over here, and hit preview. And there it is. Right here are all the people and their corresponding categories. Now let's squeeze the picture together because it's not fitting. So let me go ahead and make sure the sizing is set to squeeze, and then we go to preview, and there it is. All right, let's save it. We're going to call this, let me remove these ones first. Those were there from before. Don't tell anybody. We're going to call it the main person report. And we're just going to save the regex file. Okay. We can do, let's just leave it at that. This is a pretty standard report that we built through the end user report designer, so I can hit close, and there it is. Now the question is, we want to preview the report, right? How do we do that? Well, we've just created one. We need to make sure to mention it here. Now, I am going to do something that you're going to say, that is just crazy. But again, for the demo, let's bear with me. The preview is going to look at the file system for every regex file, right? And then when we click on it, what we're going to do is we're going to load the preview. Sound fair? All right, let's do it. Okay, so let's go down to, so we have a load designer. Now what we need to do is we need to have a private void load preview. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a name for it, or another string for this URL. And what we want to do is we want to load the report, but we want to show it with its data, right? And so this is how we're going to do it. The first thing we really want to do is we want to actually, once we have the path, we want to load the report. So we're going to say var report equals extra report dot. Now, dot from file, right? And that's going to be the URL, and we're going to say true, we want it to load. This the state of the controls. Okay, now this is the interesting part. If report is iReport, right? We're going to say report as iReport. Oops. And you're probably trying to guess what I'm doing here. Yeah, we need to tell it to load its data source, right? Because it doesn't save that. It's not good practice to save the data source with the report. You can do that, but it's probably not a good idea, especially if you want these reports to be portable, right? Notice that that interface can be implemented in several ways. You can do dependency injection to actually inject the data source, but that's for another time. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to say report.show preview. Right? Okay, so that's it. But now we have to write some code in order to add the buttons, the menu items. So we're going to say private void load reports, report menu. And this is going to be some really, I mean, it's not bad. But it's not super good either. So bar, what did I call it? Bar report preview. What we need to do is we need to clear all the links out because we're going to rebuild this every time. And now a little bit into the guts of how to build a dynamic menu. What we're going to do is we're going to add a bar sub item. Okay, so bar sub item. Well, let's call it B for the button. For each report, we're going to say equals new bar sub item, and we already have a bar manager, right, which is important. So we're going to say bar main. That is the bar manager, as you can see. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it a name, so a caption here. So notice this is what we would do for each report. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to get the path. And I know this is going to be weird, but we're going to fix this when we actually do this in the database. So application.executable path. And let me just bring some code over here that I want to copy over and explain because it's long, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, that is actually getting the path of the application, but when you get the application path, it comes with the executable, so I'm just taking it off. That's all it's doing. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for each var f in directory system.io dot enumerate files, and we know the path is path, and the search pattern is star.repx. Yes, I know. Okay, that's happy. Notice the caption now is going to be F, because that's the name of the file, right? Because we're going through each file in the directory. And now what we're going to do, and this is for later, we're going to add a sub-item to it, bar button item, edit equals new bar button item bar main, and then we're going to say edit, right? Because we want to be able to edit these reports once we've loaded them. And let me hit OK. And what we're going to do is we're going to say edit.item click plus equals, right? That's the event when they click on the edit for that particular report. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the tag for the editor is F. right, which is the actual file. Last but not least, we need to add to this button the editor, which is the edit button. Next, we need to make sure that the tag for the actual button, again, is the file. And last but not least, let's change the caption because this is the whole, I mean, I could put the whole file name in there, but that would be kind of ugly. So let me add item. And this, again, is just getting the actual file name without the whole path. That's all it's doing. And then we're going to say b.item click plus equals. Right? And let me change this to something useful. So preview item click. That's a little bit better. This one, that's pretty good. We'll leave it there. And last but not least, we need to add it to the bar report preview dot add item links. Sorry, item links dot add. We're going to add this button. Okay. Now that seems like a lot of code, but look at what we're doing. All we're doing is we're adding a new button in the drop-down menu for the particular report. Then we're adding an edit button. Oh, looks like I have a comma. Thank you. Jeff pointed that out. I'll put a period right here. That wouldn't have worked. Okay. And then I added an event for when you click on this button. The editor means edit this particular report, so on and so forth. I've saved the file name and the tag. Now, you can do that. There's probably other ways, but again, I'm just trying to show one way of doing it. And the preview we've already created, right? Load preview. So we're going to say e dot, I think it's an item that we have here. And we're going to say dot tag dot toString is the actual file path, right? So we're going to say load preview. And that's it. Hopefully that's making sense, right? Let's run it. Well, let's pass the smell test first. Oh, the smell test passed. Let's hit play. There you go. There should be a, oh, you know what I did not do, which is pretty funny, is I did not do a load report menu. Let's do that on startup. Right, so load report menu, and also what we need to do is whenever we end a show dialog on the report designer, let's load it up just so it shows a new one. Okay, just so if there's a new report, it'll show it. All right, so in the preview, there we go. Notice what we have is the actual file and the editor. So let's click. Let's not do an edit. Let's click on it and see what happens. There it is. Did you see that? That's pretty cool. So all we did is we literally built a report, added a preview, and now we can see it. There you go. I think that's pretty spiffy, but that's just me. All right, now we need to hook up the edit, right? And that's going to be the important part because we want to edit this report again. All right, so let me close it. Notice that we have a load designer for the type, but we want to have a load designer now for the URL, right? So let's do a private void load designer, and we're going to have a string URL. What we're going to do is we're going to do this, and then we're going to say report show designer dialog. Right? And now we're going to do this, but we're going to say load designer. Okay. Let's cross our fingers. We hit edit. And as it's loading, let me just tell you that indeed it did work. Now this is the key, right? Because if you just hit a load designer without the load data source, this would be empty. And that's not what we want. So let's go ahead and add the city here and the state. Okay, and let's preview it. There it is. Let's hit save. And let's just save it as the main report that already exists. And let's hit close. And let's preview it. There it is. I wonder why that doesn't disappear. There you go. It's because it didn't lose focus. All right. So I'm going to ask a general question because I have done 45 minutes of uninterrupted goodness of code. Any questions up to now? Again, the story has been we have a report. We wanted to go ahead and create a report, a generic report. We wanted to have a way to preview reports and edit reports. I've taken the lazy way out and just saved it to the file system. That's the first iteration. Any questions at all about that? Is there a way to create inherited reports in the end user report designer? So there's probably two ways to answer that question. The first question is, do you in the report designer, do you a priori pick the report you're inheriting from and then create the report, or is there a way to do it beforehand? Yeah, absolutely. Notice that what I've in essence done is I've created an inherited report, a person report, right? Because there's person report right here. Every time you create a person report, right, you are actually creating an inherited report, sort of. Same with category, right? So let me, same with category. When you create a category report, you're actually creating an instance of it. And the way you know that is because of the report service, right? This report service is saying, hey, when you get the default report, we're creating a person report. Then you modify it, and when you save it, you're saving the bits out to a regex file. And that's, in essence, what's going on. Great question. Any other questions at all? No. Okay. I don't see any. I don't see any on my list. Okay, looks like everything's good. Let me take the back channel to make sure. Looks like I'm clean. All right, so let's see if in the next 10 minutes we can change all of this so that instead of saving to a file, we're instead saving the reports to the database, because that to me is the most interesting. Now, there is no accident in the fact that I've created functions, right, to actually do this. Load the preview, load designer by URL, and then load the designer by type. This is not an accident, right? The reason why I've done it this way is so that all we have to do is change this particular setup, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. But first, what I want to do is I want to embed the designer instead of actually loading the dialogues. Let's actually embed the tabs. So let's do that. So hopefully we'll have enough time because obviously there's a lot going on here, and I want to make sure to get it all in. So we're going to have a preview control. Right, and in the preview control, we are going to use, okay, we have these components that you can actually look at them. So we're going to say print control. You know what? Let's do the print bar manager because it has more stuff in it, right? Okay, so notice that since this is in the report, since this is going to be embedded in a tab, we don't need the file, the menu. Okay, so we'll leave that there. And now the other thing we want to do is we want to add an editor control. So let's go ahead up, and we're going to say editor control. right? There we go. And what we want to do is we want to use the whole thing. Notice that all we need to do is delete this, right? We don't want to do MDI, so we'll take that out. We don't need a tab, so we'll take that out. But what we'll do is we'll need to add back into it a design panel. So let's add that back in. So there is the design panel, and we'll dock it. Okay, so that way we only load one at a time. Okay. Very good. Notice that we can, I'm going to have to be short here. We can totally take these save buttons out because you remember that each of the controls sort of have this save and delete. So we're not going to put that there. What we need to do now is each of these controls need to inherit from my controls. So let me go to view code. 0 here, and then we're going to remove that, and then we're going to say I control. Very good. So for the ID, we're going to have a special ID. We'll do a get set for now. Is dirty just returns true because notice that the preview is never going to be dirty. Now, is dirty means that there's something that's been saved, and in the main form, if I check if controls are dirty, and then I say, hey, it's dirty. Do you want to save? We don't need anything here. We don't need anything here. And we don't need anything here because you can't delete it here. This is a void, so I need to just take this out. Okay, so we've implemented it. Now we need to tell it what type of tab type it is. Return tab type dot. Oh, we already have that in there, which is pretty useful. And let me zero this out. Take the qualifier out. There, we've implemented it. Now what we need to do is we need to tell it to open a particular file. So we're going to say string URL, and we're going to say equals null, so that it can do the empty constructor, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to say private string URL. Boom. Okay. Now, so we're going to have to do this also for the preview control. So the preview control is probably going to be the easiest to implement at the speed that I'm going. So I'm going to say I control, then I'm going to implement it, and we're just going to take these defaults that we had before, and obviously we're going to fix the tab type. So we'll do this right here, and then we'll just say tab type dot preview. Okay, good. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to load the actual report. So we're going to say private string URL here, and we're going to say a string URL equals null, and then we're going to say URL equals URL. Okay, and there you go, and we're going to say load because we need to actually load the actual preview controller with the right report. So we're going to say, oh, and we have that. We'll just use the reload. We'll just use it here. Okay, so in order to load that, what we need to do is we need to load the control from the file. So if URL does not equal null, right, because that's the important thing, what we need to do is we need to load the file. And so what we're going to do is say var report equals extra report from file, right? Then we're going to say is that if the report is iReport, we're going to say report as iReport. Oops, that happened before. iReport, and we're going to say dot load data source, right? Because that's the important thing. And we're going to say that the print system, print control. Oh, geez, I didn't change that. How embarrassing. The printing system for this particular control is the same as the reports printing system, right? That's just saying, look, when you generate everything, print control generated directly from the report, and now we're going to say report dot create document. Okay. So this is how we load a report, right? And this is just the control. What we need to do now is, instead of previewing it through opening the actual window, let's just change it over here. So instead of load designer, we have the load preview. And what we're going to do is we're going to say instead preview control preview equals new preview control, right? But we're going to pass in the URL. And it should take care of everything, right? So we're going to say preview dot reload, right? That's what we decided to use. Okay, and what we're going to do is, instead of showing the preview, right, we are going to load the tab. So main tab dot, I think it's tab main dot tab pages dot add, right? And so I'm going to say var tab, right, equals that. And then I'm going to give it a caption. Tab dot caption, or is it text? It's text, equals URL. This is going to be too long. I'm just going to say preview. Then I am going to say, I just need to add it, right? No, tab.controls.add, and we're going to add the preview, preview. Is that right? Yep. Preview, but we got to make sure that the preview is docked. So preview.dock equals docstyle.fill. Then we're going to say tab main dot selected tab page equals tab. Okay, let's run that. Uh-oh, didn't pass the smell test. Forgot the true. Okay, we've changed the way we preview. So I click it, and there it is. Now it looks like it's part of the program, which I think is even better, right? Because before we did not have that. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and do this for the editor, because I only have 3 minutes. And what I'll have to do is save for another time how to do it, to save it to the actual storage, because I know that's the more interesting part. What I'll do is I'll follow up with a blog to show you how to do it. But what I want to do is I want to load the editor in this sort of window right here. So let's do that. So let me go to show you how to do that. So let me go to the editor control. Notice that we also have a URL, right? There is an isDirty here, but we're not going to implement it because we're running out of time here. But what we will do is, just like the preview control, we will implement the editor control, right? But notice that this time there is no such thing as, hold on, let me get these to work. There's no print control, right? The difference here is that we have this design panel, XR design panel dot open report, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to open it with the particular URL. Okay, let's run it. Oh, you know what? I did not do the editor there. So when you say XR design panel 1, there should be a report that we want to load, and we're going to use the report. That's probably better, because notice that if I load it from the URL, can we set that? Oh, it's read only. If we load it from the URL, notice that it's not going to load the data source. But again, I want to show you that it actually does load it. So let me go to the main, and in load designer, what we're going to do is we're going to do the same kind of thing, right? And we are going to, okay, so we want to editor control. And we have the editor there. We're going to hit reload, tab pages main. We're going to have edit. Okay, that main tab. Okay, so let's load the designer and see if it works. So edit. Oh, looks like I didn't change the event. I didn't change the event. So let me go see it. Oh, look what I did. I did not comment this out. Oops. And there it is. Looks like it's not loading anything yet. Let me go ahead and see why it's not loading. First of all, this little panel down here is kind of ugly, so I'll take it out. Okay, and let's go to the editor control, and let's see XR Design Panel 1, open report. Make sure that it runs the editor. XR Design Panel 1. Let's see what we got here. Notice that you have a number of reports, report things here. Let's see if we can do a load. Yeah, but we don't want to do that. Well, we've run out of time, and I can sit here and play with this, but let me get some of your questions before. Wait, there we go. Let's just use that report. So we have an open report. Let me go back and make sure that the reload is that I'm doing reload. Yeah, we got that. We got that. Add preview. So let's hit play one more time. And while it's playing, if it doesn't work, I'll certainly go ahead and make sure to get it fixed. Yeah, the designer's not showing. Did I got to make sure that I added the designer. Let's see here. Oh, I didn't add back the designer. Okay, so let me. Here is the design panel. Do we already have that? Yeah, it's the design panel 1. Oh, there's 2. We don't want 2, we want 1. So there's a design panel. And design open report, XR design panel dot refresh. Let's see if that works. Okay, so it's not loading it quite yet. You get the idea. There's probably something that I'm missing. But it's already 11 o'clock. Are there any questions so far? It looks like I'll have to put off to a future webinar how to actually load and save from storage. So any questions that we have here? There is a question about can the same kind of logic be used in ASPX? Depends. There's no end user designer in for ASP.NET, but if you're asking can you load reports this way in ASP.NET, meaning directly from regex files, the answer is yes. But there needs to be full trust on the server because when we load regex files, we're actually running code dynamically. So that's a good question. Next, Francois asks, could we write a link to this video? Yes, this video will be available at tv.devexpress.com as soon as possible. We have our guys here and gals get this stuff done pretty quickly. It's pretty cool. Any other questions? Another question is, will this code be available after the session? Yes, I will get it to work, and I will post it. Any additional questions? Feel free instantly if you have any questions to type into the question box. I would love to answer any questions that you have.
Looks like that's about it there, Seth. Can you hear me?
Hey, that's cool. A couple of things that I want to mention, cool stuff that we're doing. Let me load it up here so I can remember. We are going to be in New York City January 14th through 16th, we're going to be doing New York City Give Camp. A number of us from DevExpress are going to be there. Writing code for charity. And we'd love to have you there. If you want to come, go to nycgivecamp.org. In February 12th, I will be at the South Florida Code Camp. I'd love to meet you there if you're in Florida. I am going to be talking about machine learning, among other things. And so I'd love to meet you. If you are anywhere in South Florida, come by. Just look up South Florida Code Camp 2011 in Google, and you'll find it. In March, at the beginning of March, I think it's, let's see, let me find the date, March 4th and 5th, I am going to be at the Dallas Day of .NET. You can go to jointechies.com to find out more information. I will be speaking there on machine learning as well as object-oriented design and implementation. So I'd love to see you there. That is March 4th and 5th in Dallas, Texas. And if you don't know, Allende Raheen is going to be there also presenting a number of good things. Well, thanks so much for attending. Again, if there are any questions, you can certainly ping me offline. I'm going to put my address there to all the audience, SethJ@devexpress.com. I most certainly want you to email me, especially if you want to see how to get the editor to load up. Obviously made a mistake there. I'll find out what that mistake is pretty quickly and send an email to whoever wants to know. Again, the story today has been we have a program. We want to dynamically create reports. We want to dynamically preview them, and we want to dynamically edit them. Thanks for attending, and again, thank you for choosing DevExpress. I will take questions offline. Take care, guys.